Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a truly fascinating excerpt from the ancient Indian epic, the Mahabharata. And you know, what's so absolutely captivating about this specific text is the wild journey it takes us on. We're going to start way out there looking at these grand, apocalyptic visions of the world's end. And then, completely out of left field, we'll see how the text brings all of that heavy cosmic drama right down to some highly practical, everyday wisdom for living a good life. It's just a masterful shift in perspective.
So, let's start at the macro level with Section 1, the prophecy of Kalki.
The source text here, it literally does not hold back. We get this incredibly visceral, intense picture of a figure named Kalki arriving to restore order to an era of pure chaos. And he doesn't do this peacefully either. He does it by wiping out the thieves and robbers who have essentially overrun the earth. The text actually captures these dramatic, heart-rending cries of defeat, "Oh Father, oh Mother, oh Son," as sin is finally and forcefully rooted out of the world. It's this moment of immense destruction, but within the context of the story, it's framed as a necessary purification.
So the crucial point to understand here is that Kalki's actions are swift and absolute. It's a complete cosmic reset. He exterminates the wicked, hands the stewardship of the earth over to the Brahmanas, and establishes a brand new moral baseline, what the text calls a blessed rectitude. And then, he just retires to a delightful forest. He doesn't stick around to rule forever. His entire job was the reset. He basically leaves humanity with a completely clean slate, and the people of the earth are left to imitate his virtuous conduct.
Which brings us right into Section 2, Dawn of the Golden Age.
Now, we can really see how Kalki's actions build into this totally new era, known as the Krita Age. The text draws a stark, fascinating contrast. The previous era was defined by thieves, robbers, sin, and asylums filled with wretches. But post-Kalki, that chaos is completely replaced by a literal utopia. We're talking about the emergence of well-planted gardens, expansive educational centers for Brahmanic lore, prosperous temples, and a society so perfectly aligned with nature that every single kind of crop miraculously grows in every single season. It's a world entirely reborn.
Now, to really grasp the historical context the author was writing within, we have to look at the incredibly strict ancient societal structure that supposedly supports this golden age. We're presenting it here exactly as it is described in the source material. Basically, the harmony of this era relies heavily on everyone following the duties of their specific order. The Brahmanas focus on their sixfold duties, the Kshatriyas focus on feats of prowess, the Vaishyas on the practices of their trade, and the Shudras on service to the other orders. From the text's perspective, this rigid structure is the very thing maintaining perfect peace.
The source drills down specifically into these 6 duties for the Brahmanas, who sit at the top of the societal hierarchy. Their entire existence revolves around study, teaching, performing, and officiating religious sacrifices, giving charity, and accepting gifts. It depicts a society that is newly obsessed with education, religious rites, and spiritual upkeep, all being spearheaded by this specific group.
Moving right along to Section 3, the cycle of Yugas.
So all of this information is actually being narrated in the story by an immortal sage named Markandeya. He defines this incredibly prosperous era we've just been talking about as the Krita Age. This is humanity's ultimate return to virtue, where truth and honesty flourish globally. But Markandeya really wants his listener to understand how this grand prophecy fits into an ancient framework. He wants to make it clear that this isn't just some permanent, static, happy ending.
Because, as it turns out, it's actually just one part of a continuous, unstoppable cycle. Markandeya outlines 4 distinct ages: the Krita, the Tresara, the Dwapara, and the succeeding age. He maps out this grand cosmic flow of time that he, being immortal, claims to have witnessed firsthand over and over again. History literally repeats itself. Golden ages rise, they eventually degrade into chaos, and then they're forcefully reset by figures like Kalki, only to begin the whole process again.
This shifts our focus down from that massive cosmic scale to Section 4, a king's dilemma. Imagine being the guy listening to this epic history, the royal king Yudhishthira. You can almost feel the absolute weight of this cosmic reality pressing down on him, right? Hearing about these vast shifts with entire ages rising and falling, Yudhishthira asks a profoundly relatable question. He essentially says, okay, that is all captivating, but amidst this unstoppable cosmic turning, how am I supposed to act righteously in my everyday life right now? If I want to be a good leader and protect my people today, what exactly is the course of conduct? And that brings us to Section 5, the path of virtue. This is exactly where the text gets highly practical. The immortal sage Markandeya takes all that cosmic destiny and distills it into a grounded, actionable code of conduct for the king. His advice cuts right through the dense mythology to offer some truly timeless leadership principles. He tells the king to practice unwavering mercy and love for all creatures. He demands truthfulness, profound humility, and complete control over his passions. And perhaps most practically of all, he acknowledges that the king will mess up, whether through ignorance or just carelessness, and tells him that when he does, he must immediately wash it off and expiate those mistakes through acts of charity.
There's a massive, undeniable emphasis on stripping away the ego here. He instructs the king that true virtue requires actively renouncing all pride and vanity. You simply cannot protect your people or rule effectively if you are obsessed with yourself. Humility isn't framed as a weakness. It's framed as the absolute bedrock of good behavior and stable leadership.
And here is the absolute kicker, his ultimate point as to why virtue is the only logical path. Markandeya delivers this stunning truth. No matter who you are, even if you're a mighty king, even if you are a literal dweller of heaven, you cannot defeat time. Time afflicts all creatures. It brings the golden ages and it takes them away. Because you have zero control over the grand cycle of time, you have to anchor yourself in the one thing you can control, your own daily virtue. Wise people, he says, are never overwhelmed by the passing of time because their conduct remains absolutely steady. King Yudhishthira fully embraces this profound lesson. He responds by taking a powerful leader's vow, declaring to the sage that he is free from greed, lust, fear, pride, and vanity. He promises to follow the instructions in thought, word, and deed. And the text makes sure to note that witnessing this deep commitment to grounded virtue fills the surrounding audience with immense joy and wonder. The terrifying anxiety of the cosmic prophecy is completely cured by a commitment to present-day goodness.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. The Mahabharata is reminding us that we are all just small players on a relentlessly turning wheel of history. So, knowing that the very dwellers of heaven cannot rise superior to time, how can you use Markandeya's ancient code of mercy, humility, and truth in your own life? How are you going to anchor yourself against the unstoppable force of time? Definitely think about that as you go through your week.